Reverend, for joining us. If you could please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Harada. Hello and welcome to today's book seminar brought to you by the Everyday Buddhism Committee of the BCA and CBE. I am Ken Nakano from the Mountain View Temple and a committee member, along with our committee chairperson, Sam Sunada, who is unable to be here today because he and his wife are taking care of their new twin grandson and granddaughter in Hawaii. Also on our committee is our guest speaker, Reverend Harada from OCBC. And I understand that there was 182 that registered for today's seminar. So I guess that makes, Sensei, that makes you a rock star. Also on our committee is Judy Kono from the Berkeley Temple, Maya Lawrence from the Oakland Buddhist Church. Well, that's Judy there. And we also have Maya. Where's Maya? There he is. And we also have Koichi Mizushima from the Sacramento Betsu-in, and where he is a minister's assistant. He's also the CBE youth coordinator, and he will be taking care of our technical support today. And lastly, Ken Tanimoto from the Watsonville Temple and a former BCA president. Ken will now explain the format for today's program. Ken?
Let me, okay. The format today is basically what we're going to be doing is after Reverend Harada does his presentation, I'm going to be looking at everybody's questions as well as raised hands, and I will direct you to who's asking the questions, as well as if you have a raised hand, I will tell you that you could be that you'll be in position to be on the screen, as well as answering kind of a interaction, talking to everybody else and directing your questions to Reverend Harada. And it's going to be very short. If you could keep it short, between 2 to 3 minutes, your comments, I would appreciate it, because we only have a short duration of time to talk about this during his session, because we have 3 different chapters to talk about this. So anyway, I appreciate you, being interactive, and be free to do this. And please, if I cut you off, that means we're a little bit running short on time. So, please be mindful about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our guest speaker and author, our Bishop of the BCA, Reverend Marvin Harada.
Good morning, everyone. Give me a moment to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint here. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Everyday Buddhism Committee of the Center for Buddhist Education for giving me this opportunity to meet with all of you today. It's amazing what modern technology has allowed us to do. I really think that we can really begin to create an international Jodo Shinshu Sangha. Today we have someone all the way from the UK, And UK is not University of Kentucky from from Europe joining us. We have people from the East Coast, Ekoji Temple, Cleveland, Hawaii. So this is only possible because of the internet and modern technology. So thank you everyone for joining from near and far for our discussion today on discovering Buddhism in everyday life. Let me give you a little background on this book. It's a collection of my Dharma messages that I wrote in the Orange County Buddhist Church monthly newsletter that we call the Korin. So every minister that serves at any temple every month, you have to, you have to you submit an article like a Dharma message, and over the course of years, it begins to pile up. And when I had my 25th anniversary sort of celebration of being a minister at OCBC, I put some of these essays together into a book and shared them with the Sangha. So throughout my ministry, I have strived to relate the teachings to everyday life. And my first inspiration for that was Reverend Kubose's book, Everyday Suchness. So this book here is sort of a must read, I think, for anyone. So Reverend Kubose would always relate the Dharma to everyday life experiences. And I had the wonderful opportunity to study under him for 9 months after I finished IBS. And so seeing how he worked as a minister, how he shared the Dharma in relation to everyday life was sort of the inspiration for me of always trying to make the teachings relevant to people's lives. So most of the essays came from my everyday life experiences or from my experiences with some of our OCBC Sangha members. I think most ministers can relate to this. It comes around so fast that once a month newsletter article, and it's like, oh, what am I going to write about this month? In the beginning, it's quite a struggle. And then after you have more years of experience, it gets a little bit easier to write. So I chose 3 chapters for us to discuss today from the book. The first chapter we're going to discuss is Somewhere Over the Rainbow from the movie The Wizard of Oz. So this movie, The Wizard of Oz, it really struck me as a wonderful metaphor for Shin Buddhism. So first, I'd like to talk about the first time that I saw the movie. The first time that I saw the movie was when I was just a young kid, maybe 7 or 8 years of age. And I'll never forget the first time I saw it, because on that particular day, my mother had made for the first time this Japanese dish called chawan mushi. Chawan mushi is sort of a savory custard type of a dish. It takes quite a bit of time to make it. So the first time I ever had chawan mushi, and I'm watching The Wizard of Oz. So I'm watching this movie and I'm eating this delicious chawan mushi for the first time. So now to this day, every time I see The Wizard of Oz on TV, I think of chawan mushi. And then if I'm at a restaurant and if I eat chawan mushi, I think of The Wizard of Oz. So interesting how we correlate those first experiences. Oops. So we all know The Wizard of Oz, and starring Judy Garland as Dorothy. Well, here's another Dorothy. At Orange County Buddhist Church, every year, one of our fun events is the Dharma School costume party, which is held on a Saturday night. And every year it's a challenge to come up with a new costume. So one year I went as Dorothy. This is a pretty ugly Dorothy here. Even have the red ruby slippers. So as the story goes, Dorothy is very upset. Everyone is sort of against her. She feels that everyone's against her. They might take her beloved dog Toto away. And so life isn't fair. Life just isn't fair. And so she runs away from home. And sometimes we feel like, the whole world is against us when life doesn't go as we wish. So during the tornado, she hits her head and then she wakes up in a strange land and she's lost. Well, this is a wonderful metaphor too, because the unawakened life, the unenlightened life is to be lost. The Japanese word mayoi literally means to be lost. So before we had GPS and MapQuest and Google Maps and all that, I don't know how we managed. And men, or especially, I shouldn't say men, but me, myself, we hate to admit when we're lost. And before we had all this modern technology, I can recall many times my wife and I are driving somewhere, maybe we're looking for a restaurant that we're going to go to again, that we've been to before, and I'm driving and I'm pretty sure I know where it is. It's right around here somewhere. And then so we drive. No, I did. So for 15, 20 minutes. Finally, I give up. Okay. So I stop at a gas station and I ask for directions. But in most cases, we men, we hate to admit we're lost. Well, the unawakened human being, sentient being, doesn't even realize that they're lost. We don't realize we're lost in samsara, lost in delusion. So Dorothy's lost, but she finds a path. And that path is the yellow brick road. So Buddhism provides us with a path out of the world of samsara. So having a path, now we have direction in life. We have direction in life. So these are the words in Japanese. So Butsu Do, literally the path of Buddhism. Do is a character for Michi, and it's the same character that's used in all the martial arts like Judo, Kendo, Aikido. Also, we use the term Nembutsu Do. So Nembutsu is a path. It's a journey that we all have to tread. So following Buddhism, being a Buddhist, it's all about the journey. It's all about the journey of life. So Dorothy, along the way, she meets good friends to make the journey to Oz with. Well, in our path as a Buddhist, as a Shin Buddhist, on our spiritual journey, we encounter good friends in the Dharma as well. So Dorothy encounters the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion, and they make this journey together to see the wizard. This is a photo of my larger sutra study class that I've been holding at OCBC for maybe it's over 12 years now. And I wanted to point out, especially the two ladies in the middle. Of course, we have the late Sachi Ochai in the light purple jacket. We lost her last year at the age of 101. Standing next to her is Masako Hamada, who is about 97 or so now, standing next to me. Standing to Sachi's right is the late Yasuko Shohara, and other members of the class. Sei Shohara is in here. He's attending today as well. So what I want to point out is Sachi and Masako are friends. They were friends for, I don't know, 60 years, something like that. And they were more than just friends. They were Dharma friends. They listened to the teachings together. Every Sunday they sat together. All the Buddhist Education Center classes, they're in the front row, sitting together. They discussed the Dharma. They shared their joy and their understanding and their questions. And they inspired many others in our Sangha by their own example of deep listening. You know, our minister's assistant, he's attending today, Jim Pollard. He just wrote a book about Jodo Shinshu, this book here, Let This Be Known. And in Jim's book, his dedication that he wrote for Sachi and Masako. His dedication page goes, for Sachi and Masako are Sangha's most dedicated Dharma listeners. So we can see how having wonderful friends in the Dharma is such an important part of our life as a Shin Buddhist. So Dorothy and her friends, when they do meet the wizard, he helps them to realize that they already had what they were looking for. It's toward the end of the movie. It's just a really wonderful scene. You know, the scarecrow had a brain. The Tin Man had a heart. The lion had courage. So Buddhist awakening is discovering what was already there. You find this in the poems of the Myokoning. You find this in some of the writings of some of the Zen masters. Awakening to what was already there, but we didn't realize it. We didn't see it. We had not awakened to it. So when Dorothy finally did awaken, nothing had changed. You know, when she does wake up from her terrible dream, but her perspective has changed. Her view has changed. Her family is the same. Kansas is the same. But now, after this long journey, she is so grateful for her life, and she wouldn't change anything. And the beautiful line from the movie, there's no place like home. So in Shin Buddhism, another metaphor is this, we talk about going to the Pure Land. But when you look at the actual text, this character for going is actually a character that means return. So our going to the Pure Land is actually a returning to our true home, our true essence. So there's other wonderful metaphors in the movie. The Wicked Witch of the West. So scary. The first time I saw the movie, I was so scared of the Wicked Witch of the West. But doesn't that represent all of our fears? Our fears of maybe getting the virus, our fears of maybe getting cancer, our fears of maybe our business might fail, or what will life be like for our children and grandchildren. We have many fears. And so the Wicked Witch of the West, I think, is a metaphor for those fears that we face in life. I love also the metaphor of the hourglass, the sands of the hourglass are passing so quickly, and they have to try to, the clock is ticking, you know? And so this sands of the hourglass represents the swift passage of time. Life is short. Life is short. If we don't take advantage of the life we have now to come to the heart of the Dharma, when are we ever going to do it? So when are we ever going to do it? I'm Medicare age now. So life has just gone by like that, just like that. So we have to take advantage of this life that is so short. So now I'd like to sort of have a little discussion with all of you, a little different format than when we've had other CBE lectures, but I'd like to sort of open it up and see if some of you have some thoughts on this movie and how you see other metaphors. So I'd like to invite you to either pose a question in the chat, or if you would like to share something, raise your hand and then they'll call on you and you can unmute yourself, and we can have a little discussion about this first chapter of the book, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Let me turn it back over to Ken Tanimoto now.
Thank you very much, Reverend Harada, for your great talk about your chapter of the Wizard of Oz. Next time I'll see Wizard of Oz, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to look at it somewhat differently and looking at all the different minute metaphors that happens within everybody's, within everybody's context of Jodo Shinshu relating to the movie. And when you think about it, I don't want to go too much on this, but that happens every moment of our lives is part of that too as well. There's certain understandings of how Jodo Shinshu helps us relate to our sufferings as well as our happiness too as well. So thank you, Sensei. I had no one's really written anything. Does anybody want to say anything? I think Gary Mukai had mentioned about it says at the end of the movie, when Dorothy realizes her awakening, she recites, "There is no place like home," which is like reciting the Nembutsu. And guess how many times he recites her mantra? Yes, 10 times, as reference to the primal vow. So that's a great comment for Gary Mukai. So do you have anything to expound about that, Sensei?
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. The other thing I mentioned was that L. Frank Baum, who is the creator of The Wizard, was a practicing theosophist, and theosophy is strongly influenced by Mahayana Buddhism thought.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so the purpose of him writing The Wizard of Oz is to teach his children morality, and it was morality based a lot on Mahayana Buddhism.
Whoa, I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that, Gary.
I teach adult Dharma school, so we've had discussions on The Wizard of Oz more than once, and so there's a lot of things you can pull out of that. The other observation is for me is that when he was talking about Oz. He was born a Christian, but he became a theosophist. Is that Oz is when he's speaking of Oz, I think he's discrediting Christianity or the thought of a supreme being in a heavenly type of place, because that didn't help Dorothy. The thought of a supreme being in a heavenly place was not what awakened Dorothy to the truth.
Very interesting.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for your observation and your insight. We had two questions from Cynthia and from Turl. It says, "Over the rainbow has different connotations, and does it represent the Pure Land, or it sounds like getting to the other shore?"
Yes, so I think we can take that metaphor of that song in many ways. I think that from the Shinbu's perspective, when we're sunk in samsara, there is this yearning to transcend the world of samsara. So there must be somewhere, but not necessarily in a geographical place. See, not necessarily geographical place, but to me, that song reflects this yearning of the ideal world, the spiritual world, the the world of awakening. And you could say that Shakyamuni Buddha himself, he had that same yearning when he renunciated, when he left home, he went on his spiritual search. There was this deep yearning from inside to awaken to truth. I would take it in that sense. But if Arturo or Cynthia, if you'd like to unmute yourself and share how you look at that, that's fine too.
I see it as you described it.
Oh, okay. Thanks,
It's
Cynthia.
That's place that we strive, that, yeah. So as you described it, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, to me, the over the rainbow, I mean, the rainbow itself kind of sounds like something that bridges, like a bridge that allows us to get to the other shore.
Very, very good.
May
Marilyn,
I comment again?
go ahead, Gary.
Any?
Sure.
Actually, when we, in our discussion, Dorothy was singing Over the Rainbow as an escape. And she discovered that Over the Rainbow was not the answer. When she got over the rainbow to the land of Oz, that did not help her. The truth was within herself. So actually, over the rainbow, you shouldn't need to think about the answers to life being over the rainbow somewhere else. The truth and your awakening is going to happen within yourself. You don't have to travel to another place.
But you have to go on that spiritual journey to come to realize it, right?
Well, she did, yes.
Yeah. Very interesting.
But it wasn't the over the rainbow was not her answer. To me, I mean that's my my thought.
Yeah, Marilyn. Marilyn's right. She says the man. The man behind the curtain is like, as everybody learns, is the answer comes from with you, just like what Shinran and Amita says. You know, it comes from within. So you have the answers already. It's just like many questions you have. Like Judy has a question: is it necessary to experience profound suffering? Judy Kono, to experience suffering before we can change our perspective and awaken to the true essence.
Yeah, that's a really excellent question. I've been posed that question often. Well, first of all, there's no greater teacher than suffering, right? I mean, that is probably the greatest teaching when we face great adversity, great suffering. But at the same time, we don't want to say to everyone, well, hey, you got to get cancer to really come to understand Buddhism. No, that's why even while we have our health, that's why we listen. That's why we study. That's why we discuss, so that we can come to deeper insight, even without having faced great adversity or tragedy. But if we do that listening and build this spiritual foundation for our life, then when we do face adversity, I think we handle it much differently than had we not had any sort of spiritual or Dharma foundation.
Thanks. Oh, by the way, I made a mistake. It's Judy Kano from Oakland Buddhist Temple, Buddhist Church. So it's not Judy Kano. But Rumi has one last question before we go to the next session, Sensei. Next chapters. Can you speak more about the Genso Echo mentioned on page 8?
Oh, okay. So this is normally we only hear about the Pure Land as something we go to, and traditionally it's talked about, well, when we die we go to the Pure Land. But if you look at Shinran Shonin's writings, he talks about returning from the Pure Land, Genso Echo, to this world of samsara. So how do we understand that? How do we understand that? So Professor Shigaragi, whom I studied under, he said, hey, don't think that the Pure Land is this place where you're going to go and you're going to, oh, it's nice and relaxing here, sit by the pool and drink a Mai Tai or something like that. He says, don't think of it like that. He says, actually, there's nobody there. Why is there nobody there? Because as soon as you get to the Pure Land, you have to come back to this world of samsara to lead others to the Pure Land. So how we understand this dynamic movement of going to the Pure Land, returning from the Pure Land is really crucial. And I think it needs new interpretation in this country. In a sense, listening to the teachings is this going to the Pure Land. Whatever we come to realize and appreciate, then we share it with others, is the return. So I think there can be this constant going and returning, going and returning. But that's not a real traditional explanation. I should put it in quotes.
Yeah, so thank you, Sensei. We're going to be moving on to
Okay.
your next chapter, Tears That Cleanse Your Eyes. So
Okay.
there's more questions. I just want to let everybody know that later on, I know the sessions ends at 11:30. We have time afterwards to answer some of your questions, as well as any kind of interaction or interactive discussions you want with Sensei. So anyway, Sensei.
Okay,
please.
great. Thank you for those thoughts on Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Let me get back to this. Let's see. Okay. So let's go to the second chapter that I selected, The Tears That Cleanse Our Eyes, based on what Professor Shigaragi Sensei learned from a cab driver in Kyoto. So I had this wonderful privilege of studying under Shigaragi Sensei at Ryukoku University for 3 years. His lectures were just tremendous. This is his classes at the university. It was kind of part lecture, but also kind of like listening to a Dharma talk.
Then
And quite often, yes.
do a PowerPoint. Nothing's on the screen.
Nothing's on the screen. Oh, I have to reshare again?
Mhm.
Oh, wait a minute.
Share. There you go.
You got it now?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Let me go to
There. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, his lectures were often like listening to Dharma messages as well. And so he shared once in one of his lectures a conversation he had with a cab driver on his way to work at the university. And so, you ride in cabs a lot more in Japan than over here. And so he was taking the cab to school on a regular school day. And it was the day after it had rained. And so Kyoto, like Los Angeles, has a lot of air pollution. And he just sort of mentioned to the cab driver, well, isn't it nice the day after it rains? The sky is so clear. And this is Los Angeles on a clear day. But normally there's this layer of brown, and sometimes you can't hardly see the buildings, and you can't see the mountains behind the buildings. Well, the cab driver said, yes, it is nice the day after rain, but then he said, we humans are the same. Well, Sensei said, well, what do you mean by that? And the driver said, well, unless we humans shed tears once in a while, our vision isn't clear. And so Shigaragi Sensei thought, what a profound teaching this cab driver gave me. It is true. Our tears of sadness, our tears of tragedy, our tears of failure or disappointment, they have meaning. They are tears that cleanse our eyes. Tears that cleanse our eyes. Buddhism is all about seeing, right? Seeing truth, seeing reality. Tears cleanse our eyes. And so one never knows where the teachings or a teacher might appear in life. A profound teacher might be a cab driver, or bartender, or maybe even the most difficult person in your life, the most difficult person that, oh, if I didn't have that guy at work, oh, like work would be so much smoother. Or maybe it's your mother-in-law. It's not me. I had a wonderful mother-in-law, but maybe it's someone in your life that's causing you difficulty. Well, maybe they're your greatest teacher because they're challenging your ego self. So we have to be open to receiving the teachings from anyone and anything in life. Even the diagnosis of cancer can be our greatest teacher. We might think that it'd be just terrible news, but if we look at it as this profound teaching of life, now it takes on different meaning. So I'd like to just mention this book, Hisaku Nakamura's book, The Hands and Feet of the Heart. I think it's available at the BCA bookstore. RBEC republished it some years ago. And Hisaku Nakamura is like the Helen Keller of Jodo Shinshu. If you don't know anything about her, she's a woman who lived without any hands or feet. Due to frostbite and gangrene, she had to have her arms amputated just above the elbow, and then it spread to her feet. So she had her legs amputated just above her knees. And so she lived this tragic life from childhood without any hands or feet, during a time in Japan where the handicapped were quite ostracized, quite discriminated against. And so her whole life, she struggled with her handicap, and she was bitter about it. Why did I have to have this kind of a terrible life? Why couldn't I have had hands and feet like other people? But she encountered Shin Buddhism, and as she's encountering Shin Buddhism, she hears over and over, you have to meet a good Zenji Shiki. You have to meet a good teacher in order to really come to understand Jodo Shinshu. And so she thought, well, who is my Zenji Shiki? I haven't met a good Zenji Shiki yet. But then she realized that her Zenji Shiki was her handicapped body. Once she realized that her handicapped body was her greatest teacher, then her whole perspective on her situation totally changed. So really amazing story about an amazing Shin Buddhist follower. So another story I'd like to share that I heard from Shigaraki Sensei, it was about a minister he once knew. And so this minister scheduled a Dharma talk on a particular evening. You know, in Japan, they don't meet on Sundays like we do. And so this minister called his members and said, or sent a notice, I'm going to give a Dharma talk such and such evening, please come. But that night there was a huge storm. Well, he went to the temple, and then sometime later he went back home, and his wife said, well, how did the Dharma talk go tonight? And this minister said, well, I think because of the storm, nobody came. And she said, well, it's late. If nobody came, how come you didn't come home earlier? And he said, well, I gave the Dharma talk. But his wife said, but there was nobody there. There was nobody there. Who listened to the Dharma talk? And he said, I listened to the Dharma talk. That is a tremendous minister. That is a tremendous minister. See, if that was me, if I scheduled a Dharma talk, certain time, there's a rainstorm, nobody comes. Let's say it's supposed to be 7:30. I wait till 7:45. 15 minutes I'll wait. If nobody comes after 15 minutes, then I think, well, I'm going to go home and watch a Lakers game. But this minister gives the Dharma talk. Now, we shouldn't misunderstand this. It's not like he's saying, I spent all this time to prepare this Dharma talk. Nobody came, but I'm going to give it anyway. This is a great Dharma talk. No, that's not his attitude. He's listening to the Dharma through his own Dharma talk. And he's maybe reflecting as he's giving this Dharma talk. I'm saying this, but do I really practice it? Do I really realize it? He's reflecting. He's listening to the Dharma beyond himself, beyond himself. So stories like that, Shigai Sensei would share from his everyday life, people that he knew, wonderful Shin Buddhists. So for Shigerai Sensei, his greatest teacher in life was his dying mother, whom he lost when he was just a young boy. She had tuberculosis. Tuberculosis at that time was this terribly feared disease. First of all, there was no cure. Secondly, it was communicable, just like COVID. It could be spread to other people. So his only memory of his mother was that she was always in the back of the house because she did not want to expose her family to tuberculosis. So when he was in elementary school, one day his aunt came rushing to the school, says, "You have to rush home. Your mother is dying. We have to see her before she dies." So he ran home. His mother's laying on the futon, and his auntie said, "Taka-chan is home now. You can say goodbye to him." But his mother did not say goodbye to him. His mother was just saying the Nembutsu, "Nam mandabutsu, nam mandabutsu, nam mandabutsu." And she died saying the Nembutsu. So for Shigerai Sensei, this was the greatest spiritual question for him. Why is the Nembutsu so important that my own mother would choose to say the Nembutsu instead of saying goodbye to me? He wanted to say goodbye to her, but she just didn't even acknowledge him. Just nam mandabutsu, nam mandabutsu. So that became his great spiritual question, great motivation to study Buddhism. What is so profound about Namo Amida Butsu? And it led him to come to a very deep understanding of the Nembutsu and of Buddhism that he shared in his life as a teacher and professor. So how do we encounter teachers and teachings in our life? I just want to open it up and see if anyone has an unusual teacher or teaching in your own life that you would be willing to share. So let me turn it over back to Ken.
Thank you, Sensei, for your great insights of talking about our teachers, who could be our best teachers. And this is something I think we all realize sometimes, like, boy, without having our Jodi Shinchu teachings, we don't really see these what is given back to us about how we realize of how what's real and what's not real, what is true and not true. So, Sensei, I think that's very, very, very important for us to realize in our lives. Thank you, Sensei. Let's see. I have one. Matt said something very interesting. He says, there must be something about cab drivers. He says, a female cab driver I knew shared a story about being attacked by a patron. As she was being choked, she explained, "How can you hurt me? I love you." The mugger was so disconcerted that he let her go and ran away, almost in fear, like, this is such a great person. So that's a great story. Thank you for the story, Matt.
That was from Matt?
Yeah, Matt Fleming. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Yeah, that's a wonderful story. Huh.
So, does anybody have anything else they want to share or or want to say by raising your hand or by writing something in the chat? Because I don't have anything right now. So, any more Otherwise, we could always come back to it, Sensei. So we could, you know, we could go back, we could go further on to your next chapter if you want, which is, you know, difficulty of seeing oneself if you want. So let's do that.
Okay.
Oh, wait. We have someone who says, Susan, you want it from Susan says, I have a story about my mother. So if you want to share about it, you can. So,
Sure. Go ahead. Please unmute yourself, Susan.
So unmute yourself, Susan.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. As a teenager and a young woman, I had kind of an adversarial relationship with my mother. And we spent a long time apart in my adult years. So we didn't, you know, we always had an amicable relationship, but it seemed like it was so easy to fall into an argument with her. For example, if I was visiting and she'd say, well, what should we have for dinner? And she'd say, I've got this and I've got that in the refrigerator. And I said, well, how about this? And she said, well, yeah, but I really ought to use up that. And so we would end up in an argument. And because I figured she'd already made up her mind, but you know, the question was just rhetorical or something. But then I got married late in life when I was 42 years old, and my husband really enjoyed my mother. And he used to say, he would point out things that I did. He said, "You're just like your mother." And at first I kind of resented the remark. And after a while, he kept saying that, and then I started thinking, well, I think my mother must be a good person. And in her late years, I ended up not being a caregiver, but responsible for her, and I learned a great deal about her goodness at that time. So
thank you for
that's my
sharing that.
story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Carol, oh, go ahead.
Wait, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Now, Carol Ann writes, she says, while pulling weeds, I realized that the weeds were providing exercise for me. So I do not need to dislike this activity. So she's embracing everything she's doing. You know, we all hate to do these mundane things, but realizing it's awakening for her, that realizing that how much beneficial it is for her even doing these mundane things. You know, great comment.
Yeah. And there's that wonderful story of one of the Buddha's disciples who was kind of slow. He was slow, meaning spiritually slow. And so the Buddha gave him the task to sweep the yard. And as he's sweeping the yard every day, the leaves come back, the rubbish comes back, he sweeps it every day. And then he had this awakening that I try to purify my mind, but all the bad thoughts come back. And that was his enlightenment experience. So something like sweeping the yard, something very mundane, was his sort of spiritual awakening activity.
And our friend Isabel
Yes.
Bernard from New York says, New York City taxi drivers are endless sources of wisdom. Love them.
Oh.
I've never been to, but I bet you she has a lot of stories about that.
That's right. In New York City, you ride cabs all the time. Yeah. Any others?
So, let's see. This is there was a comment by Todd Cecilia said, Judy was my Zinzenshiki when I was staying at the JSC. Boy, what a great comment to her. Her kindness to me was all those attending to any BCA seminars and activities allow all of us to learn, which is true. So anyway, I think we need to go to your next, I think we have time. So we'll go to your next chapter, Sensei, difficulty of seeing oneself.
Okay. Just before we leave this essay, I just want to share one story. I have this Obutsudan behind me. This was my grandmother's obutsudan. She brought it back from Japan. The time that she brought it back from Japan, my grandmother, she was a young woman, well, maybe in her late 30s. She already had 3 children, and her own mother in Japan was ill and dying. So my grandmother took her daughter, with me, my dad's sister, took her daughter back to Japan to go take care of her mother in her dying days. While she was in Japan, my grandmother's mother died, but then also her daughter got ill and died in Japan. And so my grandmother lost her mother and lost her daughter on that same trip to Japan. And she brought this obutsudan back from Japan. So, and I've sort of inherited it. So you could say that this obutsudan is stained with the tears of my grandmother's life experience.
Mhm.
But I think it gave her spiritual strength after she lost her mother and daughter and throughout her life.
I have a couple more comments, but I think we're going to
Sure.
we're going to move on because I'm going to go
Oh.
back to this from Meewa and from Sandy. They have great questions or great stories to tell, but we're going to move on right now, Sensei. Okay, but
Oh, okay.
we'll come back to you. Okay, Meewa and Sandy.
Okay. So we'll go to the third chapter, the difficulty of seeing oneself. I won't be talking too much about this, and then we'll go into discussion. But I'd just like to share a couple of personal humorous experiences that showed me how hard it is to see oneself. I mean, in Buddhism, we keep talking about it's important to see ourselves. And I even chose that for my Buddhist name when I became ordained. My Buddhist name is Kenji, which literally means to see oneself. Actually, I probably don't live a life of Kenji, I live a life of Kenta, meaning seeing others. But I'd just like to share a couple of stories about how hard it is to see ourselves. And I wrote about this in the essay. So I went to San Jose Betsuin for a meeting, ministers committee meeting one time. And so if you've been to San Jose, you park across the street and then you walk across the street to go to the Betsuin office. So as I'm getting ready to cross the street from the left, a car is approaching. And as this car is approaching, there's a woman driving, and then she waves out the window and she goes, "Sensei, Sensei, Reverend, Sensei, Sensei." And I'm looking at this car that's approaching. Who is this person? Doesn't look familiar. And right away, my brain is just going a mile a minute. Is this someone, maybe a former Orange County member that moved to San Jose? Is it someone, maybe I did this person's wedding years ago, or maybe I did this person's parents' funeral or something? Who is it? Who is it? Doesn't look familiar. And then as this person gets closer, I probably shouldn't say the name, but I think all of you know this minister, so I'll share it anyway. So this lady says, "Reverend Abiko, Reverend Abiko." And then she gets closer and she realizes, oh, I'm not Reverend Abiko. And so she puts her head down and then she drives by. So I thought, oh, what a relief. I didn't have to, that wasn't someone I knew. She mistook me for Reverend Abiko. So I go into the Betsuin and go up into the office, and we have a ministers committee meeting. And I'm sitting next to Reverend Abiko. And I think to myself, gee, that lady, she just mistook me for Reverend Abiko here. Do I look like that? I don't think I look like that. I don't look anything like that at all. How could she have mistook me for Reverend Abiko? I mean, he's a short, middle-aged Japanese guy. And then, it dawned on me, that's exactly what I look like. I'm a short, middle-aged Japanese guy. So it's really hard to see ourselves. How much more so is it hard to see our sort of inner self? The other experience I'd like to share is one day I was at the Orange County Buddhist Church after a Sunday service. Service had finished. I had changed out of my robes, and I'm just out in front of the Hondo talking to people. One of our members put his arm around me and said, "Sensei, I need to talk to you privately." Oh, must be something serious. Maybe they had death in the family, or he wants some kind of counseling. He puts his arm around me, pulls me way off to the side where no one else could see. And I thought, well, gee, maybe I have to counsel him. And he said to me, "Sensei, your zipper is down." I looked down, my pants zipper was wide open. I've been walking around talking to people. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. So grateful to this member for pointing that out to me off to the side. So here's something so close to me, my own trouser zipper, but yet I cannot see it. So really, it's hard to see ourselves. But because it is hard to see ourselves, that's why we need Buddhism. That's why we need the teachings. Otherwise, how would we ever see ourselves? So I think the teachings are like a mirror that shows us our inner self. And Shinran Shoning's writings, we have to look at them as expressions of someone who has seen deeply into himself. This is my translation of just a portion of one of his writings called the Gutoku Sho, Reflections of a Foolish Bald-Headed One. First of all, his own pen name, Gutoku, foolish, short-haired, or stubble-haired one. Who calls himself that? How many great religious leaders in the world would choose a name like foolish, bald-headed one? But Shinran Shonin takes that as his pen name. In comparison to that, look at the great Zen master Dogen. The characters for Dogen's name means the foundation of the way. The foundation of the way. Wow. Quite a name that Dogen has. And Shinran Shonin, foolish, bald-headed one. So in this Gutokusho, he writes, on the inside, I am deceitful. On the outside, I appear to be sincere. On the inside, I am foolish. On the outside, I appear to be wise. Such brutal honesty about himself. We don't see this kind of expressions from, I think, other great religious teachers. And that's what Shinran Shonin has to offer. So he's able to see deep into himself because the light of the Dharma illuminates his heart and mind. And so in his wasans, or his poems, he expresses this light of the Dharma, or the light of Amida. The light of wisdom exceeds all measure, and every finite living being receives this illumination that is like the dawn. So take refuge in Amida, the true and real light. Now, Amida is the light of the Dharma, the light of Namo Amida Butsu, that illuminates his heart and mind such that he sees his ego self and he sees his true self, awakens to his true self. So that's what I shared in that essay about the difficulty of seeing ourself, and especially in a spiritual sense. And that's why we need Buddhism. That's why we need the teachings to be a mirror, to reflect and show us our inner self. Or in Star Wars terms, it's to see the dark side. I think the metaphor in Star Wars is really fitting, Jodo Shinshu. The light illuminates the darkness. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to Ken, and if anyone has something they would like to share in relation to this topic, or since we've finished the 3 chapters, we can go back to anything else from the other chapters as well that you didn't get a chance to perhaps share?
Yeah, there is a from Standing Zurus. It says, "I have a great story I saw on Star Trek."
Okay.
Sandy, it says, "It really taught me to appreciate change." It says, "Can I tell it?"
Sure.
Sandy, do you want to talk about this? Is coming from the last chapter, but this
Okay.
can relates to what Cynthia was actually talking about too. Maybe
Yes.
this now.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Oh, Sandy. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how you
That's
doing?
Sandy from Vista.
This is so nice. I wish we could do this every week, every Saturday. Really?
Great,
Anyway,
great.
some of you don't even remember the old Star Trek series, but I think probably a lot of you do. It's about 35 years old. And they would travel to different planets and learn new things, of course. And one day they landed on this one planet, and the people there had gotten to the point, and they'd studied, and they'd gotten to the point where they could live forever. They could live forever. Wow. And you think, oh, wow, that sounds neat. But the thing is, these people were just walking around so bored. I mean, they'd done everything, they'd seen everything. It was just, oh. And I mean, to this day, that tells me, hey, appreciate change.
Wow, I've never seen that episode. We'll have to take a look at that again. It sounds like a wonderful episode to use maybe for a discussion class sometime.
And there is a someone. There's Todd Meewa, Mack.
Yes.
Todd, it says that sweeping story. He wants to mention about Bishop Mooki, who is the bishop from Canadian Kyodan, had a fantastic Dharma message about the last chapter we had about finding about tears that cleanse our eyes. So Todd, did you want to say anything about that, or would you like to?
Yeah, Todd, if you'd be willing to kind of share a little bit, I'd like to introduce you to everyone too.
No, it was just the sweeping story. Bishop Aoki is really great with these ones. One row your boat was a great Dharma message he produced, but he also produced one about the sweeping and about keeping your house clean. I just thought I'd promote that Dharma message. It was really awesome.
I want to introduce Todd. This is Todd Meewa Mack. He's joining us from the UK, and he's quite a devout Shin Buddhist. He even has his own website, and he's sort of propagating Jodo Shinshu through modern technology. Where do you live in the UK, Todd?
In the east of England, near Cambridge.
Near Cambridge. Oh,
I'm actually American. I just sound very American, South African, and British.
Wow, it's really nice to have you all the way from. And I understand that Todd listens to lots of the BCA virtual Dharma talks, like Reverend Sugahara's from Portland. I think he said he attends that every day, his daily service, and Reverend Kuhara at Berkeley. So it's really nice that you're able to share in the Dharma with folks over here too.
Well, as they say, every cloud has a silver lining. I mean, this, as much as I wish this COVID period never happened, it has ushered in an era of sharing the Dharma virtually, which is a very good topic for this year. And it's just great that we can all connect together and share this way. I feel very blessed.
And it's so nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Okay, Ken.
Okay, and here is something from Cynthia. Cynthia has a really nice story about her mother. So Cynthia, do you want to say something about that? And you can unmute yourself and be on the video. So this is like going back to some questions I didn't have time for.
Sure.
So this is about her story about her mother was a ping pong champ of Ohio. So
wow.
Yeah, I think I shared this with you a long time ago, Reverend Harada. I should say Bishop Harada.
You don't have to call me Bishop.
Yes, my mom was ping pong champ of Ohio.
Uh-huh.
And when Judy was touring with the Wizard of Oz during that period of time, somehow her manager discovered my mom as a ping pong Ohio's champ. And we're in Columbus, Ohio, and they made arrangements for Judy to play ping pong with my mom. And so Mom and Judy played ping pong a match or two or three. And there's this beautiful picture of my mom. And I know we're not supposed to have attachments, but one of my most valued attachments is this photograph of my mom in her ping pong outfit with an autograph by Judy on it. So,
Oh my
anyway.
gosh, amazing. Really? Wow.
And as you may know, there's a backstory, which I won't go into, but we lost a lot of our possessions a few years ago. And somehow this particular artifact was saved. So.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Oh, thanks, Cynthia.
Mm-hmm. Everybody has that kind of experience in their life. They have a Judy in their life someplace.
Yeah, don't we all? Thank you for your story, Cynthia. Mm-hmm. We have a question from Rick Oishi from OCBC, who's our friend from OCBC. Jodi Shinshu is the essence of Pure Land, truth, and yet we are awakened that we cannot arrive ourselves, Jiriki. We must rely on Dariki, Amida, right? So.
Yes, right. But how we explain and interpret that. So it's not like a bolt of lightning, okay? It's not like a divine deity's power, but that's why Dr. Haneda, Noble Haneda, translates it as the power beyond the self, beyond the self. And this whole self-power, other power, I think is something that maybe we've been given the kind of a misleading understanding of it over the years. And we think that self-power, bad, don't do self-power. And Jodo Shinshu is only other power. But when Shinran Shonin talks about self-power, I think he's negating ego-centered power. Ego-centered power, like, hey, if I say Nembutsu 5,000 times, will it make me a better person? If you have sort of a self-centered view of your own efforts, that's what he's saying is not right. But he's not denying effort. It takes effort. Look at the lives of the Myo Koning. They all listened with great intensity. People like Sachi Ochiai and Masako Hamada from OCBC, they listened with great intensity, but eventually it becomes other power, meaning they don't have to put forth effort to come. It's their great joy to come to listen. That's where now a power beyond the self is moving you to listen to the Dharma, to live the Dharma. So I just want to point that out, but we need to clarify a little better, I think, what we mean by self-power, other power, jiriki, tariki, because I think we've probably been given a little bit of, or maybe we've taken it in the wrong sense over the years.
Thank you, Sensei. I'm going to go back to some questions or some stories that people want to share.
Sure.
Mia Stout says, may I please share about her banchan, her grandmother?
Oh, yes,
if there's
Mia.
time. And she taught her great lessons. So Mia, can you put you on mute, and you could be on video too if you want to. So.
Mia's from Seattle.
Okay, thanks. Hi.
Hi, Mia.
Yeah, hi. This has been great today. Thank you. So my story is about my Obachan. A couple days ago, makes 2 years ago, she passed, and she's been my life's greatest teacher. So that's kind of like usual, but what's unusual is growing up, she taught me how to peel flowers. So I was always too afraid to do it, but I refer to us as partners in crime because she had me be a lookout, and she would find them in the cracks of sidewalks or overflowing into ditches, and she'd take those. but to me that's still stealing. So I'm all panicked. So about my early 30s, she had colon cancer and had surgery. So while she's having the surgery, we don't know if she's going to come out. I got really nervous, but I went and stole some flowers from her off the side. And I'm like, I did it. And I go to the hospital and I hold them out to her. She comes out and wakes up, and I'm like, I stole it for you. And she said, that's it? I've stolen more than that at 6 years old. So she just came out of surgery for colon cancer, and she's telling me this, and I'm like, oh, I felt so puny. Well, now that she has passed, that first Mother's Day, I took my daughters and taught them how to steal the flowers like her, because as the years have gone by, I even designated a section in my garden, the stolen flower section, for her. So there's a mindfulness in being in the present that I have learned from her. And I thought about it at 8 years old. She was hiding in the mountains in Yokohama because her city had been bombed. And they were having to learn how to plant their own food and stuff to survive out there. So 6 years old, you know, there's a lot of lessons, but that was just a very unusual way that I learned from her. And I'm still learning from that. But it's been a wonderful experience that she has been my teacher in that experience. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I think in many ways, our grandmother or grandfather or grandparents or parents have been great teachers for us in our life. Thanks for sharing that, Meewa. Meewa used to be at the Las Vegas Sangha, and then she moved to Seattle. So she's active at Seattle now.
Okay, we have a great question also for, or great comment or question and comment from Judy Connell from Oakland. It says, saying farewell is so important to a family member. It could be, you know, anybody who's central being, I guess. Can you elaborate what Professor Shitagaki learned from his dying mother with TB other than pursuing Shin Buddhism?
Oh, I see. Well, I think that was the, whenever he would talk about his mother, he was grateful for that real gift of the Nembutsu. So what I didn't elaborate on, Sensei realized later in life, after he came to really encounter Nembutsu as a profound truth, he realized that if his mother had said goodbye to him at that time as a young boy, at that time he would have been happy, but it would not have put him on that path of seeking the Dharma, of finding what does Nam Myoho Daibutsu really mean. So he only after coming to understand it very deeply later in life was he able to look back and really have profound gratitude for his mother for having left him with that gift of the Nembutsu that took decades for him to come to receive, but nonetheless, without her dying words of saying Nembutsu, he would not have come to receive it. Those are the main things he shared about his mother. He also shared the difficulty at that time. See, you know, nowadays we take our loved one to the funeral home, but he said in Hiroshima at that time, to do a cremation, you had to go out and get the firewood yourself. You know, so he collected the firewood to cremate his own mother. You know, so that kind of real life experiences are what people went through in those days. Thanks, Judy, for that question.
There's another question that Richard from Ikoji Buddhist Temple said. It says, Harada Sensei, what keeps you inspired? How do you maintain your enthusiasm for the Dharma?
Oh.
Boy, what a question.
Well, it's I think after I became a minister, my greatest teacher is the Sangha. And it's these kind of encounters, learning from all of you, talking with different people, and continuing to read. I'm not the most studious minister, but I continue to read and gain from various wonderful Buddhist teachers, both Shin Buddhist and general Buddhism as well. So that's how I kind of get my enthusiasm and energy, I guess. So it comes from outside, see? That's, in a sense, tariki. You're your source of your energy, the source of your teaching comes from beyond you. It's not like you can say, okay, I'm going to enthuse myself today. No, the inspiration comes from outside, from Sangha, from books, from others. Thanks, Richard. That was Richard Malone, I believe, right?
Richard Malone, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
Was there one Jim Peck from Vista? I saw his...
Yeah. Jim Peck has a comment. Now, if you want to elaborate on this, Jim, he says, I don't know if anybody's read this. He says, the wife asked her husband, "What dress do you like, the blue dress or the red dress?" The husband said, "The blue dress." The wife says, "Well, what's wrong with the red dress?" Uh-oh. The grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to say hi to Jim. Jim's an active member at Vista along with Sandy here.
Hi, Reverend.
Hi.
Bishop.
Yes, hi, Jim.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when you were talking about, you were reading about what the Shinran-san did, talking about what's inside and what's outside.
Right.
You've got to be satisfied with what's one thing. I mean, don't always find fault with the other part. That you can be all right inside and learn a lesson for yourself. And you don't have to say, well, if I were doing this or if I were doing that. So I was thinking about your talk and a lot of things I've had to listen to a lot of times.
Uh-huh.
So that joke, that humorous joke came to me, but I also understood the grass seems to be greener on the other side. What's the matter with the side you're on?
That's right.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for your Dharma talk.
Thank you. And nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
I love the... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sensei. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I often share this story about years ago when I bought a brand new car, a brand new Toyota minivan, and I'm driving out of the Toyota parking lot. And as I'm driving down the street in my brand new car, another model of the minivan goes by me, but it's the higher class model. I bought the cheapest model. Okay. So this, the XLE version of the minivan goes by me. I go, oh, I should have bought the XLE. I just bought the cheapest model. Here I'm driving a brand new car. Seconds later, I'm already thinking, gosh, I should have bought that one. So, okay, go ahead, Ken. Sorry.
Oh, no. It's there's anybody has anything they want to mention or chat or anything, this is the time which if anybody's read, if you've read Sensei's book, are there other chapters you want to talk about that you may want to discuss? Because I know we've only had a small fraction of 3 chapters, but does anybody want to expound or question something in his book that he has? Because there are so many different parts of his book that has so much meaning to our daily lives. So if anybody has something to say or something they want to bring up, please do so now.
Ken, I think there was a Noboru had their hand raised on the somehow on the Zoom thing. Is there Noboru who would like to say something? Oh, Sharon Harada has a raised hand too.
Okay, Sharon, go ahead, Sharon. You have a raised hand.
Just unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Sharon, if you unmute yourself, you have to unmute yourself to speak. Is she there? Or no, there was a Noboru that also had a raised hand. Oh, Sharon is there. Oh, John too. Oh, John's unmuted now. Go ahead, John. You can go.
Go ahead, John.
I was in the process of writing you a letter, Sensei, and I wanted to read a couple of sentences that pertain to my significant other's reaction to your book. She said, I wish, this is from Charlotte, I wish to let you know that for several weeks, my significant other Charlotte, a Christian who has also developed an appreciation for Buddhism, has been reading a bit from your book each day. She has commented several times about how much she likes the way you have framed various spiritual issues. Buddhism and Ethics is one of the essays she mentioned. She was also moved by your sharing on a personal level, such as memories of your grandfather and of other teachers, as well as certain parishioner stories, which deepen the messages contained in your essays. So the scope of your influence goes beyond the Buddhist Sangha, my friend.
Thank you, John. John and Charlotte, they've been joining in on the Texas outreach group that meets once a month. So getting to know John better. But John encountered Jodo Shinshu at the Ekoji Temple, something like 40 years ago, did you say, John?
Yes,
40
yes,
years ago, when Reverend Suji was there.
yes.
Oh, John, Reverend Suji's daughter, Maya Lawrence, is on today. She's one of the leaders that help organize this. That's Reverend Suji's daughter.
John, I don't know if you can see me.
I can, fantastic. Your father was amazing in terms of, he did outreach to many of us who were in very rural areas without any Buddhists in our area. And he actually visited me a couple, 3 times and pulled several of us into the Ekoji Temple for a Sarana affirmation ceremony. And also sponsored me once to come out to California for one of the BCA conferences. He was a great man, Maya.
Oh, thank you.
Barbara
Fujimoto has please and be I hope you unmute yourself and be in a video if you have something to say.
I do have something to say about how life comes full circle and the journey of life. In 1973, I was a exchange student at the College of Idaho in Caldwell, and coming from Hawaii, I didn't know very many people, and so this is Bishop Harada's friend Kathy Hoshide. She took me every Sunday picked me up from Nampa, picked me up at Caldwell, and we drove to the Idaho Oregon Buddhist Church. And I grew up as a Zen Buddhist in Hilo, but I just wanted to hear the Dharma. So she took me there, and I got to meet everyone, and including Bishop Harada's parents, Hideo and Ruth, and also his wife's parents. And I just wanted to say they were very kind to me, and they treated me like a family member, and they taught me a lot about internment. I didn't know anything about that, but I just wanted to say I've been so grateful. And all these years we've been kept in touch. Mrs. Harada writes me letters, and I'm just totally grateful. So I just wanted to express that how you learn from people along in your journey of life. You have these experiences. If I didn't choose to go there as an exchange student, my life wouldn't be as rich as it is today. So I wanted to say that to everyone. People you meet along the way, they make your life. And so our journey of life life is really not, I have this sign in my house, is like, life is a journey and it's not a destination. So thank you everybody for sharing this wonderful journey of life. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ruth Terada she mentioned to me about Wizard of Oz, and I think she could best explain it by talking about it for a few minutes. Ruth, do you want to say something about your insights about the Wizard of Oz? Because I know this really you had a great comment. So do you want to say something about that, Ruth?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for calling me out. And thank you, Reverend Harada. It was a great discussion. And I do love all the Wizard of Oz analogies, and it's very relatable, very rich teachings. And then I was a big fan growing up, terrified of those flying monkeys. And, I love that you dressed up like Dorothy. That was awesome. And then, more recently, we got to see Wicked, the musical. Like, I guess it's a book, but it shows the backstory of the Wicked Witch and the Good Witch and the Wizard. And, you know, I was blown away by the story. And, you know, you never know the full story of anything. And so, you know, it's a great musical. You know, I had it on repeat on my iPod, and yeah, so that, you know, I was just saying it's a whole nother seminar, kind of
yes.
expanding on the lessons from the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, it's a nice, but yeah, like I said, it's just a whole nother topic that we can spin off of.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
I love the
Yeah,
discussion
yeah.
about Wizard of Oz. I think there's so much
Thanks,
we can
Ruth.
we can think about and learn.
Uh-huh.
And it's very relatable. You know, we can see these parts of our lives in this fantastic story.
Thanks, Ruth.
It is 11:34. We could end today's. I'm going to turn it back, but we're going to keep on going. So we could, for people who want to leave at 11:30, or they can, so we could end in Gasho, but we could continue our journey of our questions and sharing our stories too. So we could do that right now if you want. Is that okay? Because
sure.
We could end the session, but end the session, but keep on going with. I have Deuce say a few words and do ending Gasho. Okay, Deuce, I'll turn it back to you.
I'd like to thank Reverend Harada for sharing your experiences and relating them to the teachings. And I also like to thank Ken Tanimoto for moderating today's program. And also like to recognize Yumi Hata and Carl Yanari for their assistance today. And I want to give a big shout out to Koichi for providing the technical support today. He's a teacher. He teaches us about and fixes our errors about the aspects of the Zoom. So he's a great help. The other announcement, I have a couple of announcements. There will be a feedback form that will be emailed to everyone. This is our first attempt with a book seminar on Zoom. So we really want to encourage you to send in complete the feedback. And we do read them all, and we do discuss them, and we do take some of the suggestions for our future seminars. Lastly, in the chat boxes, we will be posting the link to the BCA Connect for those who want to receive information about future BCA seminars, to get on the email distribution list. And there is a donation link for those who wish to donate. And there will also be a link to the Honganji Place website if you want to purchase Reverend Harada's book. Reverend Harada, can you please lead us in Gasho?
Thank you, everyone. Really, thank you very much for joining in with us today. Hope to see you again in the future. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.